Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi wa bihi nasta'een. Wassalatu wassalamu ala a'zami ghawthin wa akrami mu'inin Muhammadin wa alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. This is the first majlis from numerous gatherings in the future that we've called al-majalis al-ridawiyya, these Ridawi sessions. The purpose behind beginning these gatherings was living in this country especially, when I speak to some of my students, some of them are present here, and they inform me about things that are happening in their communities and the confusion that people have regarding the true aqaid of the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and certain speakers who cause further confusion amongst the masses. Like, for example, one of my students who's present here today was just mentioning to me today that in his community, Sunni mosques that believe in the awliya, believe in the teachings of Imam Ahmad Rida Khan rahimahullah ta'ala, Sunni mosques, there's talk about, don't talk too much in depth about our aqidah, we're open for everyone. These sorts of things happening up and down the country. I explained to my student that remember one thing, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala sent the Anbiya to the people. Every Nabi that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala sent, the very first thing that Nabi did was to teach people Aqidah. The first thing that when Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala sent Anbiya, the first message they would give to their communities was to rectify the beliefs of people. If your beliefs are not according to the teachings of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, not according to the beliefs of the Salaf and the great awliya after the Salaf, then doesn't matter how many prayers you pray, how many zakat and sadaqat you give, regardless of how many worships you perform in your life, if your belief is not correct, none of that service and worship will help you in the akhirah. So aqaid are the basis for the acceptance of your actions. If there's some weakness in your beliefs, then your actions and a'mal will not help you in the akhirah. These sorts of things I've been hearing. Then certain speakers who, again, just like this example I mentioned, Sunni mosque telling people, don't mention too much depth aqaid. Then we hear certain speakers who further confuse people when it comes to the aqaid that we believe in. The aqaid that our A'imma taught and preached in their lives. The A'imma of the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And lot of confusion in our community. So for us, being followers of awliyaullah, followers and people who adhere to the teachings and aqaid that were taught by our A'imma, for us, especially being from the Indian subcontinent, our Imam of Aqidah, our great Imam of Aqidah was Imam Ahmad Rida Khan rahimahullah ta'ala. What we've decided in these Ridawi sessions is to select certain works of Imam Ahmad Rida Khan rahimahullah ta'ala, certain books and rasail that he authored, and then to go through those statement by statement, argument by argument, but those works that are relating to Aqidah, and to understand the true belief upon which our actions depend. So, the first text that will be in these weekly sessions, just before our zikr session, that we'll go through, the first text is called barakat al-imdad li-ahlil istimdad. This is the name of the text. Just before I start going through few arguments, initial arguments of this text, as certain mabadi or muqaddimat, some introductory statements, so that before we start, you're aware of this text, what it's about, the layout of it. These few introductory statements I'll mention. Firstly, understand, Imam Ahmad Rida Khan rahimahullah ta'ala, he was a great faqih, scholar of fiqh, and a great mufti of his time. Now, when there's in the science of ifta, giving fatwa, it's important that a mufti and a faqih understands the time and place he's living in. Because every ruling he's going to give to the people has to be according to the Quran and Sunnah, based on the Quran and Sunnah, but according to the time and place he's living in. So, when Imam Ahmad Rida Khan rahimahullah ta'ala talks and writes about Aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah, now it's important to understand the environment the Imam was living in. This environment the Imam was living in was an environment where groups of people from the Indian subcontinent had adopted certain Wahhabi beliefs. The founder of Wahhabism, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab al-Najdi, he lived approximately 100 years, a century before Imam Ahmad Rida Khan. And in Imam Ahmad Rida Khan, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his time and in the time, the century before it, these people used to be proud of calling themselves Wahhabis. They were proud. Now, this book is primarily about the Aqidah of Istigatha from ghayrullah. Asking help from other than Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Asking help from awliyaullah. That's the topic of this risala. And remember one thing, most of the books Ala Hazrat wrote, they were in response to a istifta that he received. A istifta is when somebody, he asks a question to a mufti and he says, this question, can you give the ruling of this question? So people from all over the Indian subcontinent used to write istiftas to Imam Ahmad Rida Khan. And Imam Ahmad Rida Khan rahimahullah ta'ala would receive those and then he would answer. Some of those answers were very lengthy and then became entire books of Ala Hazrat. So the majority of books of Ala Hazrat were what? The fatwas he gave. That's it. The fatwas the Imam gave. Similarly, this book is also a response to a istifta. A response to a istifta. So whenever Ala Hazrat rahimahullah ta'ala is writing a risala, at the beginning the question would be written. Ahmad Rida Khan rahimahullah ta'ala would write, this was a question that was asked. And then after writing the question, he will write al-jawab, and that's where his book begins, al-jawab. So the other thing is, when Ala Hazrat rahimahullah ta'ala would write a book in response to a istifta, he would give it a title. He would give it a title, an appropriate title according to the content of that mas'ala. And the genius mind of Imam Ahmad Rida Khan was that that title which he would give to that book, if you calculated, you see in Arabic there's a system of numbers for letters. Abjad, Huwaz, Hatti, Kaliman, Sa. Every letter has a number. It's called the Abjad. So Alif 1, Ba 2, Jim 3, Dal 4, so on. If you calculate the numbers of each letter according to the Abjad system, the answer of that would equal the year that the Imam wrote that book in. This was genius mind of ours. This book is called Barakat al-imdad li-ahlil istimdad.